Converted man here. If your speakers have not exploded, I'm with Blastermaster. Even if your speakers have exploded, Master Blaster, how are you doing?
I'm doing well, thank you.
All right, so Blaster is from Transformers or a Nintendo game. Whatever you want, it's cool. He said that earlier. No, he didn't. I'm pretending he said stuff. So we met sort of. He's been around online, but we kind of met again in a thing under SJ's thing or whatever. And so I was like, hey, let's talk and do this thing about this. We're doing this. So this is that. Let's start at the beginning. Okay,
we're hanging out.
Yeah, 13 billion years ago. Okay. Let's start at the beginning. Yeah. Okay, so tell me, what are your beliefs or non-beliefs, or what label do you apply to yourself? How did you get there? Have you always been there? Let's just start with the simple questions.
Okay.
Yeah.
I have not always been where I'm at. I was raised in a Christian household, and I guess I deconverted in my 20s, and since then I've called myself an atheist. I'm 40 now.
So 20 years.
Yeah.
Bit longer.
Well, I would say I deconverted when I was probably like in my mid to late 20s.
Okay. It
took a while.
How'd that go down? Like when you say Christian, upbringing or whatever, what brand or version was it? Or
right, it was evangelical church. It was kind of like a mega church in a small college town in Idaho, but it was like one of the bigger churches around. And they would have, it was interesting because they weren't really strict on one thing. Like they would have Kent Hovind show up one week and then William Lane Craig the next week,
wow,
visiting
really?
us. Yeah.
Huh.
So you'd have speakers that had contradicting views coming and speaking at this church.
Interesting. I guess, was that just to try to draw in more people since it was a mega church? Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, those things. I gone to one time, and it was just a very different experience. So
my neighbor, my dad owned some property, and of course he let the youth pastor move in there, and we lived in the country, so the only neighbor was my youth pastor, so I had to go do everything with them. I was pretty much forced to do that when I was a teenager.
Was that enjoyable, or to some extent, or?
Some extent. I did not like any of the religious indoctrination or anything like that. They really tried to. They manipulated people a lot, and they would try to tell you how you should live your life, who you should care about, who you should be friends with, that sort of thing.
Yeah, was it a lot of don't have sex sort of things and like that? Because I know that was a.
Yeah, there was some of that. I mean, there was it was interesting because I think the church views changed over time. Like in some areas they got more strict, in other areas they kind of loosened up a little. And it was I remember they had a purity thing at the whole church, so the girls would put on purity rings and all that bullshit. It was pretty freaky, dude.
I always I didn't never have that, but I always kind of one of those things where it's man, if you could go rewind time and put yourself in that position, be take off the ring, be yeah, no, I lost. I'm not pure anymore. Just to see what they would do. How much, just to mess with them. Every other day it'd be back on. Today I'm pure.
Oh. Right. You're I winked this morning. Sorry.
Yeah, yeah, today is a cheat. It's like a diet. That's Friday is a cheat day or something. But yeah, so that is a unique experience. Growing up in a mega church. Did they have a lot of separate, smaller groups?
Smaller groups within the church.
Yeah, because the one mega church I ever gone to, they had like a bazillion different groups you could be a part of. I mean, this place,
I think for the adults they did.
Yeah.
For like the kids and the teenagers, they didn't. I would always like volunteer to go babysit the like 2-year-olds during church, so I didn't have to sit through church.
So you didn't. You were always just jaded against God. That's the problem.
Yeah.
Why you didn't buy into it, or what was the?
Right. I didn't, because I was hearing these contradicting views every week. It didn't make sense to me. And the amount of like control I could see how that they wanted to like level onto people. I was stubborn.
Yeah.
I didn't like being told what to do.
Do you think that your parents took you to like because it was just this is what they did, or do you?
I think my mom wanted it to happen. I think my dad did it because it helped his business down the street.
Yeah, get out, social networking, right?
Yeah.
I kind of call this American Christianity, where you go to church on Sundays, maybe you go another day as well, but it's not like you're sitting down and really talking about God like every day or whatever. Like, you're not super deep philosophical about it. Yeah,
No.
Is that about right for you, or is it?
Yeah, I would say that's pretty accurate. It was more like just go through these steps. Yeah, you go to church on Wednesday night, and then you have youth group, and then you go on Sunday morning and Sunday night, and then the rest of the time you're doing whatever else.
Yeah. You're kind of like God's in the background, kind of like not, like he's there on Sunday, but
unless you're my mom.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Well, now see, so it sounds like did you actually have a belief, or how would you frame that?
I think I was convinced that there was a God. I wasn't sure if it was the same God that the people around me believed in. Like, I always wondered, because it always seemed like they would always be like, you can just pick and choose how you want to live your life in the Bible. That was the whole idea that I got when you see contradicting views every other week, or whatever it was. It wasn't every other week, but it was
Yeah, I mean, they kind of shot themselves in the foot in a way by, I mean, because a mega church, I don't know. I mean, going there every week, yeah, I just don't, I can't conceptualize that, because it's like the one time ago.
I played in the band.
Wow. Okay.
That was another way to pass the time, so it wasn't so boring.
Yeah. So you learned how to play an instrument just for that, or?
No. I played a saxophone in school.
Oh, okay, that's cool.
Yeah.
So you must have liked Bill Clinton then, right? No. Yeah. You know what they say? Bad sex is better than no sex at all.
I suppose so.
Yeah, I don't know. Okay. Yeah. I got nothing.
I don't know.
He's just what's the? Did you ever see that one guy that he went around playing the same thing everywhere on saxophone?
Oh yeah.
Like
the 80s song or whatever.
Yeah, and like they'd be like, okay, play that one, that one song, and you play the same song. He kept kicking him out of places. It was hilarious. I don't know. I thought it was funny.
I thought it was funny too.
So, when did you decide, or how did you get to being on YouTube, to talking to, or at, typing at, or talking to?
Yeah, that's a good question. I think it happened when I deconverted. My wife and I lived in South Korea for a year. She got a job teaching English over there, and I kind of followed her. And I was studying martial arts while I was there, and I was teaching English on the side to little kids. And, I think living in another culture kind of gave me a reality check that maybe, the beliefs I was holding at the time weren't really special in any way. I didn't have any way to validate them. I think that's what it really was. That I just realized I didn't have good reasons to believe what I believed.
Hmm.
It just clicked one day.
Did you go to any sort of religious thing that they had there, or did you feel like?
No, I think that what surprised me the most was most of the people that I hung out with weren't religious at all.
Yeah, that is. I mean, that kind of aligns with what little I know about Asian culture, broadly speaking. There are, it's more about the ceremony. It's not. It's kind of
Right.
more like with Japanese. I know more than Korean. I don't know very much about Korea at
It's
all.
just it's just tradition. I mean, Christianity does exist over there,
yeah.
but it's like a comic book version of it, almost kind of.
Right. Yeah. I mean, well, in Japan, I know that they had there's a hidden Christians, which is a whole nother ball of wax, but very interesting. That Christianity was outlawed, so it went underground, and so it can't. When it reemerged, it's like this fusion of Buddhism and Shintoism and Christianity, and so you have two different depictions of Mary, and it's all very interesting how that worked out. And I'm guessing for South Korea that missionaries there are just as active and trying to get Christianity in there. But
that's what I was going to say is the majority probably of the Christians I ran into in South Korea were probably Jehovah's Witnesses.
Yeah, okay, they have a so they have a presence,
and they're really like pretty vicious over there.
Well, you have to be. I mean, I don't even know how you would cross that cultural gap of these stories, because they're not. I know that many believers think that these are universal stories, but they're just not. This is a it's just if you ever sit back and try to, like, I did this when I was still in the midst of deconverting. Yeah, that's the word I wanted. Where I went and I was like, okay, I'll be a Christian in this, or I'll be a non-Christian in this Christian chat room, and I'll just be, somebody that's never heard of it, just to see if they can explain what it is. And so I kind of, had this role that I, like I was acting, and, just hearing them try to explain any of the story, it's like, man, this doesn't make, like, if you've never heard of this, none of this makes any sense. So it's just
the concepts of like this God had to sacrifice himself to himself.
Yeah. I mean, it's all very, very strange. So when when they go and they do this with the four, it seems like it's more of a focus on the get a small group going of people and just talk about stuff, and then slowly introduce the religion. I'm guessing that that's how missionaries do it, but I don't know. It's hard to say.
I don't know. I mean, the Koreans that spoke English that were Jehovah's Witnesses would like get in the elevator with you, so you couldn't get away from them.
So they were successful. So they must have found a strategy that works then.
They would go after people that were isolated. I know that.
You can have a group. So there's that social tug.
Yeah.
So at some point there, you got onto the net and told people that they were wrong online.
Well, I think I started watching the Atheist Experience and stuff like that, and then I came back home and kind of just went crazy. Went through an angry atheist stage. Probably pissed off most of my family. And then I was like,
did they really get upset when you told them that you didn't believe anymore?
Or? My mom did, yeah. And my in-laws were pretty upset.
Did they try to, reconvert you or disown you? What can you get into that a bit more? Or?
Yeah, it was, I wouldn't say that I think at first they tried for like the first year or two, and my mom would bring up religion and I would start arguing with her about it. And eventually she got to the point where she was like, look, I don't want to talk about this. And I was like, fine, don't bring up your religion. you know.
Yeah.
So we
Yeah.
made kind of a social agreement that I wouldn't bring it up if she didn't. And this went on for maybe a couple of weeks, but then I didn't bring it up. I didn't argue with her for a good 6 months, and she kept bringing up religion around us, and she kept trying to, like, doing just weird stuff. She's like, "Let me put my hands on you and pray for you." She's doing that to my wife and stuff. Yeah, I didn't really appreciate it that much.
Yeah, I that's kind of weird. Yeah, so not was your wife also a non-believer when you met her?
At that point, no. We were both believers at the time that we met, and I even went to church with her and her family for a long time until the pastor turned on me. Basically, I don't know why. I guess it was because we didn't get married soon enough.
See, there's that whole you lived together before marriage. Oh dear. Yeah, that's taboo. You're not supposed to do that. Yeah, a lot. Yeah, that was a big no-no. Like, that was really drilled in, at least into my head to some degree. It was like, you can't have sex before marriage. Don't you dare even think about that kind of thing. And it's like,
some terrible advice.
Yeah, I wonder how many people that really messes with, because I know at least one relationship I had would have been a lot different had they not been told, like, you can't think these things, because they, like, literally were like, I'm not even sure about kissing, because, like, I want to maybe save kissing for marriage or whatever. Like, I'm thinking thoughts, and the thoughts that I'm thinking are bad, and so I can't keep kissing, because, like, it's like, oh my God, it's
that
just
guilt that they want to put on you.
Yeah. So it's just, without that, that relationship might have lasted longer. Who knows? I don't know, but it goodness knows how much damage this sort of thing has done, to people, broadly speaking. So what happened? What happened there?
Let me continue here.
Sorry.
So my mom and I was like, I have to figure out a way to talk to people without maybe trying to argue with them all the time. Or I was looking for a way to, like, talk to people about my position without trying to offend them. I came across like street epistemology.
Yeah.
And that motivated me a lot to try and talk to people.
Right, because
and it was motivated because I wanted to be able to talk to my family members in a way that wasn't gonna, like, offend them.
And so did that technique, has that worked, or?
In some ways, yes. In other ways, I would say no. I would say that I've learned to maybe just not talk to my family about that sort of stuff.
Yeah, I mean, it's hard, I'm sure, from their point of view, I'm certain, because, they want you to be part of their group. Like, it's just this weird, mental thing. It's just so odd.
Well, my mom is into using faith as a. I'm sorry, there's construction outside. I hope it's not too loud.
That's all right. Beep, beep.
Anyway, my mom is into using faith as a method of attaining knowledge.
Interesting.
So she thinks her beliefs make things true.
That's interesting. I'd be like, hey, we could test this,
Yeah, but she won't even talk to. She won't answer my calls because of me asking questions like that.
Yeah. I mean, have you found that you have any other beliefs that linger in your head after, even after deconverting so long ago? Is there, like, ideas of spirits or afterlife or ghosts or any ESP or anything like this?
Um, I, at the time I deconverted, I held a lot of beliefs like that kind of. I was into like meditation a lot, and I was like kind of like I have a pretty active imagination, so I could it was leading me in a strange direction. And once I believed in spiritual things at one point, and I believed I could see them. And I think once I stopped believing that I could do that, basically, that I had no way to evaluate those things, I stopped pretending, basically. And it's like I don't see anything like that. And I know if I ever do have like a hallucination, like I've been sick and hallucinated before, I don't take that as a part of reality,
Hmm. It with the sort of going down the weird trail of did you just kind of talk yourself out of that, or did you read books or look at things, or how did that?
Yeah, I think I just kind of talked myself out of it, honestly. I think like I was saying, I think I just realized I didn't have a way to test these things. I couldn't, and I had to be, I just decided I had to be honest with myself. Girls, that's my dogs wrestling. It's not one thing, it's another.
Yeah. Now, a lot of religious people talk about their personal experience, and this is a very common topic that I would dare. I don't know if I want to say it's the number one go to, but it's up there.
I think it's the number one go to when they realize that their arguments don't work.
maybe so. Yeah, I haven't documented it. I should really get data, but I'm like, no, whatever. Is that did you have anything that you would have called religious, God, spiritual experience, or is it just kind of this fuzzy sort of like you thought you saw? Or
I did. I thought I did. Yeah, I thought I had all sorts of experiences like that.
Is there anything?
Go ahead.
Yeah, I was gonna say, is there anything specific, like something really weird that you remember? Like,
okay. So when I was 17, I started doing Tai Chi with this woman, and she had me based like I mean, she could just tell me to visualize something and it would happen later or whatever. It was pretty weird. Like hypnotizing, she could hypnotize me basically. It was kind of strange.
Yeah, I would thought that the she thing was that in there, or did they
the what?
The she?
Yeah, absolutely, yeah. And I think that's honestly what snapped me out of it, because it was like that combined with going to another culture. And I was like, when I was taking martial arts, and I was like, oh, are you into? I was talking to my instructor. I was like, are you a Buddhist? He's like, no, dude, I'm not a monk. And I'm just like, what am I doing? I'm like, he's right. I'm like, neither am I.
Yeah, I mean, you can learn, these self-defense techniques, and it's interesting how some of those have gained the she stuff in there.
The spiritual aspect of it.
Yeah,
like each move is like based on a different animal, and you can meditate on that animal. I would always like practice visualizing animals doing Tai Chi, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I mean, that's how they, like their different forms were gotten from animals.
So when you do a bunch of it, you can just like pick an animal and start meditating on it, doing Tai Chi, or an insect.
This is the form of cow. Moo.
Yeah, exactly. This is deer form.
Not sure exactly how cows attack, but that.
Yeah, with their heads.
Yeah, it'll be utter destruction. Yeah. I'll call us utter destruction with it.
Utter destruction. I'm sure Jackie Chan has a counter.
Yeah, I'm stupid. Shut up. Anyways, I'm telling myself, shut up. Yeah. Yeah, Hadouken, right? Exactly. Yeah. So they're I've seen this, instructors that say, oh, I can push the person down with, my mind. And
I don't think it was at that level, but she could definitely like had me hypnotized to a point, and I think I learned to do that to myself, and I learned to kind of control it. And I realized that like I realized that it was just my imagination. Like I had a really active imagination. It's like painting. It's like she would do things like very simple things like you just imagine there's a blank canvas in front of you and go ahead and start painting on it. That's the kind of just very simple things like that to loosen your mind up to that sort of thing.
Yeah, I mean, it's amazing what our brains are capable of doing, that we can produce all these images and ideas and movies in our mind. But then to just leave it there and not think that it's anything more than that. And I think there might be some, I don't know, advantage to knowing that it's just you doing it. Like, it's like ultimately you have control of it. Like you were saying, like you gain control of it. Whereas before, maybe the person had to, tell you what to.
Yeah, or you had to have this, like, you had to be in church with your hands raised,
right?
Then you feel it.
Right. And it's like, if you can make yourself feel that way whenever, well,
right.
Broadly speaking, I mean, you have to be, it has to be a certain atmosphere, quiet or whatever, but, yeah, I think,
exactly,
it's like,
though. You're spot on with this.
Yeah, you can just, meditate and bring this feeling, whatever, or vision or whatever it is, and just know this is me doing this, and it feels just as good, as it did before, and it doesn't have to be magical or mystical or anything like this. And I think that because religion tends to shut down other religions, like no, don't do that. That's evil. Like, the whole thing with Wicca and magics with a K and all this is like, I avoided that like the plague, when I was a Christian. And it's like, now it's like, oh, that's interesting. Like, I don't believe in any of that stuff. That stuff doesn't do anything, but it's really interesting that you're doing that. Okay, what do you think that does? And it's like, I can learn, about this. And
my mom got together with a group of ladies at church and burned all our magic cards.
Oh no, Magic the Gathering?
Yeah.
Oh jeez. Did you hear about the the ban that they did on several Magic cards they did a while back? That was so stupid. Oh jeez. I called it the power. I think it was power. I want to say 7, but however many cards it was, I was like, yes, it's the power 7. They're so powerful. They had to be banned, cleaned from the servers because they're racist cards. And I'm like, really? I mean, come on, guys. It's just did anyone care? Like, what? It's so silly. And of course, the prices on those cards shot up, and I was like, dang it. Yeah.
That's probably why they did it.
Maybe. I don't know. It's like the second mark, they're like,
some nerd plotting in the background,
we've got a bunch of these cards lying around. We need to sell them on eBay. How can we do that? Yeah, I'll ban them. Oh, okay, yeah, that's how to do it. Okay, so you've interacted with people online in text and some voice.
Yeah.
Has anyone, what do you make of the different arguments or not enough quotes in the universe, evidence, not enough end quotes in the universe?
Yeah, I've never heard a good reason or argument that's convinced me that I don't find fallacious in some matter or unreliable.
Is the word God in and of itself, do you think that there's any meaning to this, or do you think that this is just at people's whim? What do you make of that, broadly speaking?
I guess it depends on how the person is using it. I guess if they say God is love, I'm going to say that's pretty stupid and useless.
Well, why would that? Because you already have a word for love.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It doesn't really explain much.
Yeah, it's like, well, if we love each other, why do we need this other thing like, what's the point of this other word then?
God is a chemical process.
Yeah. Well, I mean, that sounds about right. Sure. Yeah. But, there are people that have told me that love is not chemicals, or not just chemicals. They're like, no, it's more than that, or it's not, or they'll even deny that it's chemicals at all, and it's hard to know how to talk to somebody that's that, like with Dawson there, where we were talking to him in text, and I did a live hangout where I read some of the stuff he'd said and
I saw that. I didn't watch the whole hangout.
Yeah, no, because the guy, I was like, I think I'm getting
that guy is crazy, dude.
I felt that way, but you don't want to say crazy and you don't want to throw these kind of things around. But I know where he's coming from. I get where he's coming from. God owns everything. Okay, fine. But that doesn't really work in reality. Like, you can believe that, but
is he younger?
I don't know. I don't know. I mean, I get. It's hard to gauge people's ages or whatever.
Yeah, I would like an immature. Like, to me, it just seems like it's like, are you like 20 years old? You're just really naive.
It's hard to say. I've met people that are really old that are that this way too. So,
yeah.
So it's really, I don't know. I try not to, look into the person's.
Well, he's very aggressive.
Yeah.
And whenever I've tried to interact with him a few times, and he's just not very honest.
Yeah, I mean, when you have such a strong belief that your defensive mechanisms are really high, like you're like, no, you're wrong. I know that I'm right, and that's it. And you can't prove that you're right, and they prove that they're right. What are you going to do about it? It's like, what? No, you didn't like
prove that I'm wrong.
Yeah, you can't prove I'm wrong. I'm like, well, okay, I guess I can't then, because you told me. So there we go, we're done. Like I'll be like, no, you can prove me wrong. I want to be wrong, and I learned something.
Yeah, that's the kind of question I would ask him. It'd be like, do you care if your beliefs are true or not? Or it's like, if you're convinced that nothing could or would change your mind, then I don't think you really do care.
Yeah, I mean, it's hard to say, but with that sort of like the God owning everything, I just thought that just tickled me.
It's the watches everywhere, right? The stand or watches.
Yeah, the whole watchmaker argument. Well, everything is watch then, and then then there's no analogy at that point. It's like, if you found a watch in a pile of watches, and the watches were also the stream where the watches grow as trees watches, then how would you tell the watch from the other watches? What? Like, everything's a watch. What are you talking about?
I think that's like the kind of mentality I sense from him. Just very
maybe I don't know, but it's like, well, but yeah, I mean, okay, God owns whatever. Like, okay, but mechanically, how does this work? Like, you and I, we own whatever. Like, I have a blue sheep for Minecraft, a stuffed toy. I'm like, you want to buy that from me, but technically God owns it. So how do we make this transaction exactly? Like, how does this work? I don't know. It doesn't make sense. Explain it to me. And he didn't explain it to me. Oh well. But stuff like this where it's all over the place with and you can see it. People will, I often try to remind the viewers, if you will, myself, that we too are susceptible. We're not like immune to this sort of thing, like well, maybe with politics or whatever, especially with what's been happening in Portland. You can see how people groupthink and ideology can drive people to madness,
Yes.
And no matter what side you think is right or wrong, or
that's
all of that.
That always drives me crazy when, like, if a theist is ever like, the atheists and blah blah blah, and I'm like, dude, we are not a group. Please stop saying that.
Yeah, we're I mean, I've heard
we're a demographic.
The atheist community, people have thrown that idea around, and I kind of
I cringe every time I hear it.
I kind of reject it, and I kind of go, well, technically, yeah, okay, well, what's a community? It's a group of people getting together. I'm like, yeah, but also no. Because, I don't, you might be left, you might be right, you might be none of the above, and the only thing that we might agree on is that we don't believe in this thing. And that's it. That might be the only thing, so and I try to be open to that, and yet I see with, well, I don't know.
What are your people going? You know what? Those damn unicorn,
right? Yeah.
Like, it's like, yeah, most people don't believe in unicorns or whatever. It's like,
yeah, I would want to say nobody does, but I wouldn't be surprised. Somebody somewhere does, but I'd love to be able to say nobody believes in goblins, ogres, or dragons, but somebody believes in one of those things somewhere. I'm almost sure of it.
Oh yeah.
A little question. I think we'll address this question. It's a good question. Is there positive aspects of the concept of God in evolutionary history? I'll give that to you, even though it was directed at me. That's a good question.
I would say yes, absolutely, because it was helping people come together in some sort of way, in a group mentality, something they could agree upon that they had no way of testing anyway.
Yeah. No, I'd have to say about the same answer. This is a way to, get people to follow laws or rules or whatever, and they've done these experiments with kids where the Princess Alice is watching you. It's very fascinating.
Right. Yeah.
So there's something about the idea that somebody that is an authority figure is watching you that tends to make people behave differently, even though they kind of know it's not. Like, the kids kind of knew that it wasn't real. Like, they were like testing it. They were like, this isn't, but they behave differently in spite of it. So, it's just something that our brains do, and goodness knows why,
I think humans are superstitious by nature.
Maybe that might be the thing. I don't know. It's hard to say. It's just we want to get along, and so, there's a hierarchical structure, and maybe that's part of our evolutionary baggage, if you will, good, bad, or other.
Yeah, I think so, and I think now maybe it's not as necessarily as it used to be in the past.
Yeah, I don't know. Imagine. I wanted to, somebody that knew better about evolution than I do. It's like, at what point would Homo sapiens not be Homo sapiens? Like, when does that happen? Like, when do you call it a new thing? Like, because you had Neanderthals and you had this and you had that. It's like, okay, great, but when are Homo sapiens like, are they ever not Homo? Like, how does it, where's the gradient? Because it's not like a hard line. It's more of a slow transition. So it's like 1,000 years from now, plus maybe more than that, tens of thousands of years, if humans are still around, you'd have like Homo whatever the bleep.
I imagine it'd be probably augmented.
Yeah. Well, we already have like some augmented people already, so it's like,
yeah.
But if somebody was born and lived in space their whole life, like, and that kept happening, and they were born and lived on the moon, and they died on the moon, and successive generations, you'd have a whole group of people who certainly couldn't come to Earth, at least not for long, or maybe at all. But you'd also have, it could be that doing that long enough would make it that they couldn't mate with us. So then they'd be a different species at that point, but it would take, beyond anybody's normal lifetime to see.
Yeah, it would
take a while. But it's just interesting to me, at least, to think about that sort of
thing. I don't know if it would take long for them to necessarily maybe start looking different.
Yeah, probably not, because it's.
The gravity.
Yeah, what I've heard from astronauts that have been, even on the space station for like a year or two, is like they have to work out like every day, just to not lose the muscles, and even then, they still do. So,
Yeah.
Uh,
I mean, I think that's one of the problems probably with going to space is overcoming that.
yeah, we have to have some sort of artificial gravity somehow, and nobody's figured that out yet, I guess.
I guess we could have the big giant spinning.
Yeah, I don't know. Yeah, I don't know. Yeah, I mean, I guess that would work. I'm not really sure if that would be enough. Like, I don't know. I don't know. Put magnets. Use magnets. Magnets. That's the solution. Nobody knows how they work. What
Do you like sci-fi a lot?
Yeah,
Me
sci-fi
too.
is good. Sci-fi, it's fun because we can I think that it could be more in depth. It depends, I mean, the real universe is so bizarre. There's like sci-fi usually is about characters rather than that stuff per se. Like maybe they'll visit a black hole, but it's like, yeah, go visit the giant sun that's like takes up the entire, like the biggest star that we know about would, if it was in our solar system, would be the size of Saturn's orbit. Let's see you visit that star in the next episode so we can see what that would, like, here's the ship and like here's how far away we have to park from that star, because if we were any closer it would pull us in and burn us up, or whatever.
Right. I like The Expanse is good. That's a good one.
Yeah, I couldn't get into that one.
Oh, really?
Yeah, no, yeah.
How about, did you see Raised by Wolves? Have you seen that? Yeah.
No.
Oh,
I haven't. Yeah, I haven't really consumed
Ridley Scott.
Yeah.
The guy that did Aliens.
Okay, we got another good question to go off of. Is symbolism such as cave paintings an opening for the concept of God?
Probably not. I imagine the concept of God probably existed before then, or something. Yeah.
I don't know. From what I know of cave paintings, what I've read, I barely remember, so don't take this as gospel. But that they think that the people were trying to paint the animals to gain control of the animal, like that. It's like, or maybe painting what animal they killed that day, or what animal they wanted to get that day, or something like that. That there might have been, they don't know for sure, obviously, but that there might have been some sort of superstition, like if we paint enough deers, then we'll be able to capture one because we have dominion over them. Or it might just be they like to paint animals because it was a thing to do. Who knows?
Yeah, I mean, that's what I was thinking. I was like, well, there's probably lots of reasons they painted it. Maybe they just wanted
yeah, I mean,
to
just something to do.
Like
it was just something to do. I mean, it's like, there's kids, come up with different games just as something to do. They were observing a group of I don't know if it was chimpanzee or what type of primate it was, but they had started throwing stones at this one particular tree, and and they were saying this looks like a proto religion of sorts, because the behavior didn't have any there was nothing to gain from this behavior. Like,
there's no purpose behind it.
It's like the young ones would go out, they'd throw stones at this tree, and then they'd come back and they'd be like calmed down, or like it was like a way to release anger or something maybe. But they were just trying to figure out what the bleep it could mean, because it's like usually you see animals, what they do is about gathering food or hiding from predators. And then the social aspect is kind of there, and of course with primates,
like 2000 Space Up, 2001.
Yeah.
Well, when they find a monolith,
yeah, that's what evolves everything is this black slab. Yeah,
they're like, oh, what the fuck?
That's what did it. Evolution and creationism is true. Yay, everybody's wrong. But yeah, I mean, it's this grappling with the why kind of question. Like, why are we here? What are we supposed to do? Why, all this sort of, philosophical mussing. What if anything are your takes? This is all this meaningless and pointless because everything's just gonna explode one day,
I mean, we give ourselves purpose, right? I take that position firmly. And I'm not too worried about what other people think too much unless it affects the world around me, which religion tends to do a lot.
Yeah. Oh, all sorts of things do. I was, it's like I was saying with the political stuff that's going on, where I've seen people become just as say things that if you replaced, somebody's name that starts with a T with some, with God, you would have this incoherent statement that they would never make otherwise, right? Like, this person's evil. Like, okay, maybe they are, but what are they doing? Like, what argument are you making to say this? Like this person is racist, like always, or in this one case, or like, what do you mean? And just these sort of vapid, broad brush strokes of that group is bad, and it's like,
I think I understand. I think I understand why people believe it serves a purpose. It feeds the ego.
Yeah, it's group mentality, but and it can happen in sports or anything really, where it's like, it's my team. I never understood that. I'm not into sports myself, so
what's funny? When I deconverted, I kind of lost my interest in sports and stuff too.
Really?
Yeah.
I never was interested in sports at all, really. I mean, sometimes I would watch golf or bowling, but it's just I never really got it or got into it.
Maybe that might not be the reason why. It just
kind of happened.
Yeah.
Yeah, but I mean, people can be, fans and, fanatics about things like, oh, how dare you not like, you don't like this show that I like? Oh man, there's something wrong with you. We're gonna have a talk about this. This is how you're wrong. And people can get really insanely hyped, and it's the talk about fandoms and things like this. Like, what's the worst fandom? And people
talk negatively about K-pop. See what happens.
Oh, screw K-pop. Screw everyone that likes
Now
K-pop.
They're all coming to your channel.
Bring it on, K-pop. I hate you. I haven't. Yeah. Oh God.
You're like, you don't even know it.
No, I'm just kidding. I'm just kidding. I don't know anything about K-pop. Wait, no, that's bad too.
I heard of like some streamers though, like dissing like a K-pop group and then just bombed off the internet by their fans.
It's just insane how it's like, you can't have, like, I don't know what it is. If it's just the age of the times, or it's so hard to say. It's like the person. Oh, they said the thing that I don't want them to say. Well, now I hate them. Like, okay,
the internet's a new thing still.
Yeah.
It's not that I think we're all still getting used to this. Hey, we can just type.
Do you think it's good or bad, or what do you make of
it? I think it has definitely pluses and minuses. I mean, it's good in the sense that you have information at your fingertips, but it's bad in the sense that maybe not all the information is accurate.
Yeah, that's the thing I keep seeing. Like, I watch this channel where all he does is take down these scammers that they put up call the 800 number because your computer got locked,
like
or whatever.
Or whatever.
Yeah, so they take them down and they waste their time, and sometimes they hack into their computers and whatever. And it's just so vile. And these guys are making money. They're I was like, man, you wouldn't think that anybody would fall for these scams, but they do. And then they they're getting really sophisticated with it. Like, a lot of these people, you think, oh, if they have an accent, just hang up. It's like they're getting, where they can speak really good English. You can't tell they have an accent. It's like, oh yeah, here's a password so that if anyone else that calls you, ask for that password, or only call our number.
Yeah, only talk to us because everyone else is a scammer.
Everyone else is a
We've got your
scammer.
back.
Yeah, right. And they are the scammers. It's like, yeah, and so it's like, well, people need to learn how to be skeptical. It's not, there is no one click to regrow hair.
If you hear a message on your phone that says they're from the Social Security Department, it's a scam.
Yeah, they're not. Yeah, they don't. The government doesn't care enough to call you.
Exactly.
Unless you owe them money, but then they'll just send you a letter, or they'll show up or whatever. But even then, be skeptical, and so that's kind of the big thing, I think, is that people, broadly speaking, we have to learn to be skeptical. But of course, people will always catch me on this and be like, oh, but how skeptical are you? Like, do you not believe that reality is real? It's like, should I? Is there a reason to? Like, if this is if this is the Truman Show, I don't know who's watching. It's boring.
Maybe we're just the intergalactic zoo, right? We're like the South Park episode where they're just watching us on TV from space.
Yeah, but
next time on Earth.
Yeah, next time on Earth, they're watching. You can watch anybody. I mean, but there's no reason to think that is the case. Even if it's a hypothetical that until it's shown, you have to doubt. It's like, yeah, it's interesting to think about, but no, I don't doubt reality until I'm given a reason. Like that's how that works.
It's impractical to think that way.
Yeah, and when we get into these discussions about God and whatever, we broadly speaking, I should say, the atheist, the skeptic, whatever the label is, we say, okay, well, where's the evidence, and what do they give every time?
Arguments from ignorance, usually.
Well, they give an argument, right? They give an argument. They don't give you evidence. What do you mean by evidence? So it's like, well, that's a good question. So how do we do? What is our epistemology?
The Bible.
The Bible, right? Well, what would constitute as evidence for this phenomenon you're describing? Is it testable? Is it observable? And if not, what else is there that you have to offer? Because and I did this debate a while ago where I was like, okay, all these other philosophers or whatever have also said that you don't need to test or observe things in science, and I'm like, great, what else they got then? What are they offering to replace that then? Like, how are?
Yeah, you're from what I can tell, you're offering me something that I have to take based on faith.
Yeah. I mean, like, it's like, well, it's historical. You'd have to doubt history. Yeah, maybe. And like, we could doubt all of history.
We don't get to the supernatural via historical.
Yeah. Like, well, that's the problem is that, it's like, well, do you doubt George Washington? I don't have a reason to, but he never walked on water, So
even if he didn't exist, it wouldn't really.
Yeah, it doesn't. Yeah, that's the other thing. It's like, yeah, right. If I doubt George Washington, I don't go to hell. So there's a different. There's kind of, well, maybe, I don't know. Maybe George Washington.
It's always the Socrates or whatever.
Yeah. No, I don't know.
It doesn't really matter.
I don't know if Socrates or Plato or any of those. I don't know. I don't care. It doesn't really matter. It's like if they existed, what matters is the writing. It doesn't really matter. Somebody wrote it somewhere. It doesn't matter if it was one person or that. Oh, well, but that's silly because all historians are
really. They didn't claim to be able to like take your soul that you have and torture you forever. Yeah.
I mean,
they didn't make that claim.
There's the way we separate what is myth from reality in history is very simple. And like, now there's stuff I don't know about history. Like if you were to take the book Gone with the Wind and you didn't know that it wasn't just a, book that somebody made up, like it could be a historical book for all you know. Like,
right. There were historical accuracies within it.
Yeah. Right. And it's very detailed, and there's some narration where you might go, well, who's watching this person do this action? Like at this point, you know, you kind of get where it's like, what, you know, the all-seeing narrator, where that might be a clue, but it might be the style that the historian decided to write this history in. So did it happen? You could say, well, there's no reason to say it did or didn't happen. So maybe, sure, you know, what evidence do we have? And you explore it deeper. But the believer of any given religion will say, no, but you're still not using tests or evidence for that stuff. It's like, well, what do you call the fact that we're looking for the evidence of archaeology to support the narrative of Gone with the Wind? Then, you know, it's like, what are we doing here? You know, what's another, you know, maybe you know of it. What is there another category in epistemology of how we discover X is true that you know of?
Apologies.
That's okay.
You're asking. Okay, so you were asking me if there's another method other than
observation or testing that you know of it to deduce if something is true.
I don't know. I think we need to have reliable methods or ways. I would say that. There are ways and there are methods that are reliable. If you can demonstrate that the method you're using is reliable, I'll accept it for the most part, you know?
And
if you have that's what I'm more concerned with. Like, it's funny because with people like SJ, for example, I think she's really goofy because she's just like, this is what I believe, blah, 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 blah. And it's like, we don't care what you believe. Yeah. All we care about is how you're getting there. Is the method you're using to arrive at your belief reliable? That's what I'm concerned with. You know?
Do you find the conversion stories to be rather lackluster?
Absolutely.
I find, and I wonder though, because I hear deconversion stories, and sometimes they're very much like mine, sometimes they're not, and sometimes, of course, people have always not believed, so they don't really have a story per se. You know, they have a story about like encountering religion for the first time or whatever, and that's interesting on a different level. But it's like, man, I got to make sure like not to only like deconversion stories, because then what if atheism is a religion? You know, it's like, I don't know how it could be, but you know, it's like I gotta be careful. You know,
I'm convinced that none of the current gods are real by any means.
Yeah.
They're all man-made as far as I'm concerned.
If we wanted, you know, okay, so if there was a thing like that, what would we even be able? First of all, you know, would we even be able to? I don't know what the label would be.
If a god exists, maybe there's something that's hidden. Maybe there's something that's hidden that doesn't want to be discovered.
Yeah, it'd be. Yeah, I mean, that would be. I think that would be the only conclusion we could reasonably draw. It's like whatever it is, it doesn't want us to know.
Right.
Like for sure, like it wants us to be confused, like, or maybe, you know, that's the other thing, it could not want anything, like it's just, you know, we're an experiment that was, you know, left out on the petri dish or whatever, you know, and you know, it's just like, yeah, you know, it's just some scientist somewhere, and it's like, oh yeah, that thing, I haven't looked at that in a while, you know.
Yeah, forgotten about. Yeah.
So I mean, but whatever, you know, whatever that is, because, you know, they're still trying to figure out, you know, the T1 point and all this different things in science. And it's like, whatever that is, let's say one day we get that, we have the answer, and it's just gonna, it's probably not gonna make any sense at all unless you know like super high level math or something. You know, or maybe it's gonna be like really simple. We're all gonna be like, well, that's stupid, you know. I don't know, either way, but it's not, I don't think it's going to be anything that we you know, we might guess it by accident, but just with how weird reality turns out to be, our intuition just doesn't seem, adequate enough to.
It's not good enough. Yeah.
Yeah, like who would have imagined atoms or molecules being a thing? Like, it's just like, oh, that's interesting how that works. Like, what? Yeah, and so it's weird. I don't know. What have you studied logic or philosophy? Do you have any thoughts on
informally?
Informally, you've studied informal logic? Because there's also formal logic, so you could informally study formal logic. Are you?
I'm a layman. I'd like to think I have a basic understanding of philosophical concepts and stuff, but nothing too far out there. I have friends that are philosophers. If I have like deep philosophical questions, I'll ask them. Yeah.
What? Let me ask you the questions they were asked your great philosopher Bernard Russell Teapot. What thing would you want years from now? Somebody listens to this. What would you want to say to that person?
I would say, do what you think is right. Don't do things because other people tell you to do them.
Okay. Deep enough. I know that was like put you on the spot. Like, deliver wisdom for the ages. Go.
I mean, that's the advice. Like, if I could travel back in time, that's the advice I would give myself,
Yeah.
I'd be like, dude, just think for yourself and stop letting other people influence you so much.
Yeah. Well, I mean, you have to learn something from people, but you also don't want to, like, you have to be your own.
Grow a pair.
Yeah. Be your own man or human or robot or whatever the hell you are. I don't know. Be your own thing.
Meat sack.
Okay. Well, we've been going for an hour. I don't know if we covered all the things, but I think we covered a lot of things, and hopefully it was interesting to somebody. I don't know. I thought it was interesting, there's plenty of, it's good to always, do you have any content or anything that you want to promote, any book or anything that you do?
Content.
Come on, put some jazz.
My wife and I are considering making a channel and kind of maybe to talk to theists on.
Yeah. I mean, that'd be good. For you to get some, a couple's look at it or whatever. Because maybe you can play. Like, can you still play the saxophone?
No.
Oh, maybe.
I still remember how to play it, but I probably don't.
Yeah. Well, you got to practice so you can be like.
I have a didgeridoo up here.
The saxophone atheist or something. I don't know. I'm just trying to brand you.
Julie, my wife, plays the clarinet.
There you go. So
yeah,
make those two fit together somehow.
We're not musicians though, because once you leave the church, you don't have a band to play with anymore. Really.
Well, it'd be a band of two. I mean,
Yeah, maybe.
There's some people I know that are musical around here. If I can poke them enough, wake them up. Yeah, but I don't know. Yeah, but I mean, so you don't have anything you want me to direct anyone to or anything like that?
No, I mean, I haven't put anything early on my channel for a long time. There's some videos up there like talking about my experiences with like Jehovah's Witnesses when I was in Korea on my channel. If anybody's interested in that, I don't know. I'm like, watch out for this cult.
Yeah. I mean, what else are you really going to say with that? I mean, there's not. Yeah. I mean, there's some in-depth stuff out there for.
I was talking about mostly about how aggressive they are.
Yeah, but they're Korean. I
got harassed by American Jehovah's Witnesses pretty much just as hard when I was a kid too. Or they came to my parents' house. Wow. They showed up at our house on Christmas morning one time.
Wow.
Yeah.
Okay, that's
ballsy, huh?
Yeah, I guess. I mean, I saw there was one running around like Thanksgiving or whatever. And I was like, wow, Thanksgiving, and you're evangelizing on Thanksgiving. I started asking all these skeptical kind of questions, and he's just kind of like, yeah, well, I'm gonna talk to you. Bye. Like, wait, come back. No, I'm not done. I have more questions to you. Anyway, all right. Thanks.
Let's do this again, though.
Yeah,
I had fun.
All right.
If you ever want to have like me on to like talk about like a video or whatever or something, something stupid SJ says.
Oh God. I mean, look, I've done so many videos on her. I think I capped it off with the movie. I'm like, no, I'm done. I'm not gonna do more. I'm not gonna. And then, but you see, reels me back in.
I want to address her like experiential argument, because I think everything beyond that point is ad hoc, because none of these arguments convince her.
Yeah.
That's not why she's convinced.
The experience one is so lackluster. It's hard to know even where to start. It gets really subjective, and I don't want to like try to mind read or figure out.
Well, I just want to know
whatever.
how she feels that she reliably evaluated her experience.
Yeah, I mean that's something. Maybe you'd ask her when she does the open hangout or whatever.
I'd have to do that. Yeah, that's what I'm saying. I'd have to.
But you have to nail her down. She doesn't like that, by the way.
Dude, she's a slippery snake, man.
Yeah. I don't know if you saw my talk with her whenever the bleep that happened, but yeah. Anyways, all right. Goodbye, everybody. Goodbye. I'm gonna hit the button. You're not gonna leave when I hit the button.
Okay.
I hit the button for everybody else. Everybody else is gonna leave. And
bye, everyone.
Goodbye. Say something stupid. I don't know. I got nothing.